Someone posted something online this morning, an opinion, a statement, something you disagree with, and before you had finished reading it, the reaction was already running, the chest tightening, the jaw setting, the specific heat of someone who has been wronged by words on a screen, written by a person they have never met. You spent part of your morning on this, composing the response, or deciding not to respond, or telling someone else about it. Your morning, which belonged to you, was partially consumed by a stranger's opinion. You call this caring about what matters. You call this having values. Nietzsche had a different name for it. Being offended is not a sign of moral seriousness. It is a sign of a specific psychological condition, one that Nietzsche mapped with precise, unflattering accuracy in 1887. The condition is this: a person who cannot act on their own power begins to convert their powerlessness into a moral position. They cannot build. They cannot compete. They cannot impose their will on the world through creation or achievement, so they impose it through judgment. Slave morality says no on principle to everything that is outside, other, non-self. And this no is its creative deed. The offended person is not responding to a threat. They are performing a function, the function of a psychology that has nothing to affirm. So it has learned to define itself entirely through what it opposes. This is not a political observation. It is a structural one, and it applies equally to every corner of the ideological spectrum. Nietzsche's slave morality begins with a specific inversion, the noble type. What Nietzsche called master morality starts from the self. It looks inward, identifies what it values, and acts from that. The outside world is evaluated through the lens of its own standard. It says yes to itself first. The judgment of others is secondary. Noble morality found a notion of good simply by looking at themselves. Whatever is associated with them is good. And then the notion of bad emerged as the opposite of it. The slave type does the opposite. It cannot start from itself because it has no stable self-generated standard to start from. So it starts from the outside. It finds something to oppose. It labels that thing evil, and then it defines itself as good by contrast. This is the architecture of modern outrage culture in its entirety. The person who is perpetually offended does not know what they are for. They know, in elaborate and constantly updated detail, what they are against. Their identity is constructed entirely from opposition. Remove the thing they are opposing, and there is nothing left. But here is what makes this mechanism so difficult to identify in yourself. The performance of offense feels righteous. It feels like integrity, like the correct response of a person with standards, like you would be morally compromised if you did not react. The slave revolt in morality begins when resentment itself becomes creative and gives birth to values. The resentment of those who are denied the proper response of action. Compensate for it only with imaginary revenge. Imaginary revenge. That is what the outrage response produces. The post you wrote, the conversation where you explained why they were wrong, the internal monologue where you defeated the argument perfectly. None of it changed anything in the world. None of it moved anything forward. All of it produced the sensation of having acted, without the cost or risk of actual action. This is the luxury of offense. It gives you the feeling of power without requiring you to do anything powerful. Ressentiment, Nietzsche's term for this specific psychology, is not simply resentment. It is the chronic orientation of a person who has redirected their drive for power away from creation and toward reaction. Ressentiment requires an opposing external world. It needs external stimuli in order to act at all. Its action is basically a reaction. The person living in ressentiment cannot initiate. They can only respond. They are, in the most precise sense, reactive. Their entire psychological existence depends on the continuous supply of things to react to. Remove the feed, remove the news, remove the stream of offenses, and they have nothing to do. No identity, no purpose, no sense of being alive. This is why outrage culture is self-perpetuating. It does not exist because the world is uniquely terrible. It exists because an entire population has been trained by the algorithm, by the social reward structure, by the specific dopamine architecture of public moral performance, to require offense as the primary fuel of their psychological life. You are not angry because things are wrong. Things have always been wrong. You are angry because anger has become the substitute for agency. 3 signs you are already operating from slave morality. Sign 1. Your strongest opinions are about other people's behavior, not your own direction. You know, in detail, what everyone else is doing wrong. You have less clarity about what you are building, what standard you hold yourself to, what your work looks like at the level it deserves. The outward judgment is precise and energetic. The inward demand is vague and negotiable. Sign 2. Being challenged feels like being attacked. When someone disagrees with your position, even calmly, even with evidence, the reaction is not curiosity, it is threat response. The position is not something you hold provisionally based on the best available reasoning. It is your identity, and identity cannot be questioned without triggering defense. Sign 3. You have confused reaction with action. You have responded to things this week that had no direct effect on your life. You have spent mental energy on situations you cannot change and people you cannot reach. You have called this engagement. It was not engagement. It was the consumption of your attention by a system designed to consume it. The exit is not indifference in the passive sense. It is sovereign indifference, the active choice to redirect your evaluative energy from the outside world back toward your own standard. Step 1. Audit your triggers. For 1 week, every time you feel the offense response activating, write down what triggered it, not to process it, to see the pattern. What you will find is that the triggers are not random, they are consistent. They map precisely to the areas where your own life is furthest from the standard you claim to hold. The things that offend you most reliably are the things you are most avoiding in yourself. Step 2. Stop the performance. The next time you are offended, do not respond. Not because the response would be wrong, because the response is the product. You are being asked to generate reaction. The entire structure is designed to extract that reaction from you and convert it into engagement metrics. Ressentiment requires a sort of falsification. It secretly desires what it opposes. The master is truthful and honest because there is nothing internally to hide. Withhold the response. Not forever, once. To demonstrate to yourself that the reaction is a choice, not a reflex. Once you have proven it is a choice, you can make it deliberately rather than automatically. Step 3. Return to your own standard. The master morality Nietzsche described does not evaluate itself by comparison to others. It evaluates itself by its own internal measure. The question is not, are they wrong? The question is, am I doing what I said I would do at the level I said I would do it? Whereas all noble morality grows out of a triumphant saying yes to itself, slave morality says no on principle to everything outside itself. This no is its creative deed. Your creative deed should not be a no. It should be the thing you are building, the work, the standard, the version of yourself that does not require the constant supply of external offense to feel alive and purposeful. Build that. Today, the outrage will still be there when you finish. You will care about it less. If this hit differently than what you usually watch, subscribe. No motivation, no self-help. Nietzsche's every week.